Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. I'm your host this week, Christopher Felice, joined by my buddies Warren and Joe. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing tonight?
Howdy.
Little soy boy salty over here. Had a parlay in place that lost by 1 yard. Thanks to Mr. Caleb Williams. I had him to throw for 175, and he threw for 174. But fantasy-wise, did great. I won in every league this week, which is the opposite of what happened last week. And I live another day in guillotine, which is yay. So hope everyone else had a great season, great week 2.
I think I won in 3 out of my 4 leagues, and well, my guillotine league's kind of on the fence, so I'm not entirely sure.
At least you get to have a fence to stand on.
Yeah.
Must be nice.
And then, the injury bug's going around. Well, luckily I haven't been affected by that, but Chris, I understand that you have been.
I would like to read off my woes before we get into our show tonight. So I'm on my phone right now reading off my team who has been affected by the injury bug. So on my roster for our Dynasty League, I have Isaiah Pacheco, who's probably going to be out for at least 6 weeks or something like that. Rashad White, Cooper Kupp. I had Puka Nacua. He's already gone. And I also have Joe Mixon. So yeah, truthfully, it hasn't been great in the camp of Christopher's, my football team, my dynasty team. However, there's brighter futures ahead, and by that I mean every other fantasy football league that I'm in is where I'm focusing my attention right now. But yeah, fun.
I feel your pain, Chris. I also had Pacheco and Cup in redraft, so
rough
hurts.
But with that being said, with all these talks of injuries, you're probably, if you're like me or anybody else out there, looking for some guys to put on your roster from the waivers, which is why we're here today to talk about some waiver wire add-ons. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Our first look up here will be on quarterbacks, starting with Sam Darnold. Guys, you know the drill, same thing as before. Percentage of fab, we'll assume $100 fab in your league. What percentage are you putting on Sam Darnold? Warren, we'll start with you.
Yeah, Sam Darnold, like through the first 2 weeks, is he the top quarterback behind Derek Carr?
Yeah, so yeah, I'll give a little fun stat here. I have I don't know the exact stat for top 3. I actually want to say yes, he is the second in week 2, but only 3 quarterbacks scored more than 20 points last week. That was Kyler Murray, Derek Carr, and Sam Darnold. So keep that in mind when you're deciding this. Against the 49ers, no less.
Yeah, so I mean he's tearing it up right now. I know Justin Jefferson got injured for, a couple plays during that last game, but as far as I know, he's okay. Is there anything else on him, or is he fine?
As far as I know, he escaped anything major, and he should be fine.
Okay. And remember, he doesn't even have TJ Hawkinson back yet, so he's doing all this without Hawk. Once he comes back, that's another weapon for them. And I think he's going to keep on rolling. Personally, I think that he's, he never really had a good team around him. He played for the Jets before this. Then I can't even think of anyone they had, a position player wise. And then obviously played for the Niners last year, but never, got in the game because Purdy was healthy all year. But this is really his first shot where he's had a solid team around him, and he's showing out.
Alrighty, Joe, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, kind of like what Warren said. I mean, he has no Hawkinson, and he also had no Addison last week, so he did it with just JJ and insert wide receiver 2 and 3 here. So, because pretty much Hawk, Addison, and JJ are like the main weapons in that offense, and he's without 2 of them last week, and he still put up this impressive of numbers. I picked him up in a league I'm in last week when I needed a second quarterback because of the Jordan Love injury. So I was lucky enough to have him last week before another good game. But if you need a quarterback, if you are a Jordan Love owner that grabbed Malik hoping he would do well and he hasn't, or sadly, if you are a Bryce Young owner and you are feeling the woes, I think Sam Darnold should be the top waiver pickup for you this week. only rostered in 13% of leagues. If I needed a quarterback, I think I'm putting like anywhere from $17 to $23 to get this piece for my team. Quarterback's most important position in football. If you don't have a solid quarterback putting at least like 20-ish points up every week, you are probably losing your weeks. So definitely an important part, and that's why it's how much I'm putting on him.
Alrighty, very good. Next up, we have Deshaun Watson going up against the New York Giants next week. It is no mystery here. The Giants' defense is atrocious. And while we do have our concerns around Deshaun Watson, perhaps going into a favorable matchup might be fine and well. Joe, we'll start with you first. What are your thoughts? How much value are you putting on Deshaun? Are you trying to get him? Are you fading him? What's the thought here? He is rostered, by the way, in 25% of leagues on Yahoo Fantasy right now.
I'll give this as a perfect example. I put in a waiver in my other league for Deshaun Watson, and I bid $0 to try to get him. I did not get him because someone else also put a waiver in for him, and they also bid $0 and went to priority. So that's two real bids that went out for Deshaun. I was trying to drop Bryce Young to grab him because I had him as my third quarterback. Got benched, looked terrible. So I'm like, I might as well throw Watson on maybe he'll pick it up later in the season. So a $0 bid for him was what I put for him, and so I think I might stick to anywhere from $0 to $5. I wouldn't be bidding too much of my wallet on him. A quarterback that's put up under 20 points 2 weeks in a row does not excite me. He went 12.66, 15.44. Not exciting for me as a fantasy owner, so that's why my bids are so low here. Warren, as a Browns fan, what are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I'm kind of on the same page as you. Obviously, his first week was atrocious. Last week, he looked a little bit better, but there's still something off with him, even against a weak secondary like Jacksonville has. And the second half of the season for the Browns is going to get really tough as far as defenses go. So if you do pick up Deshaun Watson, now is probably the time to play him because you're not going to want to play him second half, I don't think. But yeah, I would personally try to probably avoid him. I think you have better options.
Okay. Moving right along, Geno Smith up against Miami Dolphins, rostered in 34% of the leagues. He had a pretty good week last week. 44 attempts, 33 completions, 327 yards, and a touchdown. Gents, what are we thinking about this one? Joe, we'll start with you again. We'll have a little fun here. Yeah, what are you thinking? Geno Smith, pick up? Not at all?
Oh, yeah, definitely pick up. He wasn't available in any of my leagues. He's already taken in all the leagues I'm in. So, I mean, he is rostered in 34% of Yahoo leagues. So, there's a pretty high chance that he is already rostered. But if he's on the waiver and you need a quarterback, definitely, I'd go anywhere. I'd go around like $10 for him. He had an 18.84 point week and a 22.38. My personal rule of thumb is I'm happy if my quarterback is putting up 20 points. That's I feel like a very reasonable number for a quarterback to put up. And if he's putting up close to 20 every week, sold. Unlike you have people like Anthony Richardson that just put up 5 points, or Bryce Young that looked absolutely terrible. So very happy with Geno if I'm a Geno owner, and if he's available, I'm going like $10 for him.
Okay. Warren, what do you got?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But Joe, Bryce Young doesn't know why he got benched.
And people close to him are unsure.
But anyway,
Yikes.
Yeah, I agree with that. Geno Smith, I'd probably go like $10 to $15 on him. He's going to put up the numbers for you, more than likely. So I think he's a better option than Deshaun. I'd still probably go Darnold over him, and this next guy we're going to talk about too. But
Yeah, let's talk about that next guy really fast. The bane of Matt High's existence, the one, the only, Derek Carr. So he had a really, really fun time last week. 16 attempts, 11 completions, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and then he rushed 1 yard for a touchdown. The whole thing really unorthodox. Rashid Shaheed is the guy over there, clearly. Don't know what's going on with the Chris Olave situation, but he's rostered in 19% of leagues going up against the Philadelphia Eagles next week. What are you guys doing? Are you picking him up for long term, for a matchup? What's the thought here? Warren, we'll start with you.
I think I'm picking him up. I think I'm bidding pretty high on him, probably like 20, 25. First week people thought maybe it was a fluke. Carolina obviously is a bad team. Then he comes out against a good defense in Dallas and completely torches them. So, they do have a new offensive coordinator. Maybe that's part of the success that they're having. And Alvin Kamara looks like the Alvin Kamara from like 4 years ago. So I don't know. I mean, I think as of right now, you kind of have to try and get him.
Joe, are you feeling the same?
Yeah, I'm torn. I feel like it's a trap, but I think I want to pick him up to store him to see if it's a trap. Because as Warren said, Carolina looks terrible this year. Dallas did give him a lot of points, but he did get that QB sneak for that touchdown. So I don't know if that's just like is inflated numbers because without the touchdown he's closer to around 20 points, which, like I said, is like an average quarterback number. He's playing Philly next week. That'll be the test. Philly's a pretty good defense. If he does well against Philly, then sure, I'm all aboard I'll start Carr every week if he does good against Philly.
Okay.
I think Matt High's he's embedded in my brain saying he's a bad quarterback, and but Matt High's wrong about a lot of things, like Anthony Richardson. But we'll move on.
Oh no! All right, yeah, we are gonna move on. We're gonna move on before we start any fights here. So that's it for our quarterbacks. We're gonna move on to our running backs. I'm gonna group this first couple people together because you're only gonna pick them up because of injury. Figured same conversation here. I got Bucky Irving, I got Carson Steele, and Joe. I'm gonna go to you for the pronunciation of the last guy.
Samaje Perine.
Thank you. So Bucky, we got rostered in 34% of Yahoo leagues going up against Denver. 7 for 22 yards. He started playing a little more after Rachaad White left the game early. Carson Steele and Samaje, I hope I pronounced that right, 5% and 6% respectively, rostered on Yahoo, up against the Atlanta Falcons. 24 yards rushing on 7 attempts for Carson, and then Samaje had 1 reception for 3 yards. Boys, what are we thinking? We'll start with you, Joe. Break down whoever, how much fab you putting down, what's the thought, who are you prioritizing?
It's so Bucky was getting picked up before White got hurt because Bucky looked really good.
True.
So now that, granted, Rachaad White injury is minor, I don't think it should sideline him at all. But I think you still need to pick up Bucky. I think he's still gonna be, even if White's 100%, he was still involved in that rush game. He still had a 70% snap percentage week 1, which is I'm looking at White. He's still involved in that game, though. Like a 30% snap percentage for a rookie in week 1 is nothing to laugh at, So, and now that White's injured, he's going to get even more. So I'd say around $10 to $15 on Bucky, and Carson Steele and Samaje Perine. It's like a toss. People are arguing. I've seen articles back and forth like, Carson Steele had a crucial fumble. He lost the trust. They're going to go with the veteran Perine. And then other people are like, Perine's old and he's injury prone, which both are true facts. So I don't know. I think my money's on Carson Steele to win the job, just because Samaje is so much older and he's more of like the receiving back kind of role. So I think Carson Steele is my go-to guy for that job. As an owner of Pacheco, I think I'm going to be putting my waiver budget on Carson Steele this week, and I don't want to give too much away as people might be listening and try to outbid me, but I'm anywhere from the ballparks of $10 to $20 for maybe even a little more than 20 for Carson Steele. Because if you lost Pacheco, that probably was one of your top running back draft picks. You most likely don't have a lot of depth behind that player for running back. So you're going to need a starting running back until Pacheco does come back, which can be anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. I am going for Carson Steele. I'm going anywhere from, I'd say like 15 up, especially if you had Pacheco and you need a running back. Bucky most likely isn't available, but for Bucky, I'd say around $20 as well, maybe even 25. He was heavily involved before the injury, and now with the injury, I could just see him tearing it up and winning that job. Warren, what do you think?
I do agree with Joe about Bucky. He did look really good, but again, just like Joe said, my guy here has to be Carson Steele. I think that the way they utilize the running back in that offense with Pacheco, it's just too hard to pass on. I mean, he gets the receptions, barring Carson Steele can come in and, somewhat replicate what Pacheco does. I think that he could be in for a pretty big, however long Pacheco's out, 6 to 8 weeks. So, Ty Chandler to me, like, yeah, he outproduced Aaron Jones, but I think they were just riding the hot hand. I think Aaron Jones is the guy going forward still for them personally. And then Rico Dowdle and P. Ryan are kind of just meh for me. So I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, no. So you kind of a little spoiler. So yeah, we have Ty Chandler and Rico Dottle also on our list here. After those three guys, I'm kind of in agreement. So, yeah, I'm more focusing on Bucky Irving and Carson Steele myself personally. Totally not because I'm a Rashad White and Isaiah Pacheco owner. I have no idea what you're talking about. But yeah, definitely looking more into those two players rather than the others here. But yeah, let's hear your thoughts, Joe, really fast on Ty Chandler and Rico Dottle. Those are our last two guys in the running back area.
Yeah.
Ty Chandler, 29% of Yahoo Fantasy rostered, up against Houston Texans. And Rico Dottle is 41% rostered, and going up against the Baltimore Ravens. What do you got, Joe?
Yeah, no, these are just like emergency pieces. Like Chandler had a good week last week. He had 82 yards, but he also saw 35% snap percentage. Like Warren said, he's not the guy there. They were just riding the hot hand that game. And same thing with Dowdle, has a little bit more of a snap percentage, but 7 rush attempts for 30 yards. I think his biggest draw is that he was heavily involved in that passing game because he had 5 targets for 4 receptions, 29 yards. I mean, that's pretty appealing in a PPR league, but I think the Cowboys were just a mess last week, so I take that with a grain of salt and probably stick with Zeke or Jones as my main guys there. And my short story for running back, my main focus this week is Carson Steele. If Bucky Irving is available, that's also those are my 2 top players waiver wire wise for running back.
Okay, and with that, our running backs are done. We'll head right into wide receivers. I'll group these next 2 guys together as well. Similar kind of story here, but a lot more drastic, in my opinion. We have Demarcus Robinson and Tyler Johnson on the LA Rams, and to the fallout, the power vacuum that is now in result of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua being out. We have Demarcus Robinson at 42% rostered, and Tyler Johnson 11% rostered. Both going up against 49ers defense. Now, obviously, we're, about half, a little under half of, people have Demarcus Robinson rostered, but just in case, what are you guys thinking? Warren, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, they're going to be probably pretty important pieces to pick up. Obviously, those guys, like you said, they're out multiple weeks. So who are they going to throw to over there in LA? It's these 2 guys. Yeah, it's these 2 guys. So if you're in need of a receiver, Demarcus Robinson might not be available. He's taken in 42% in the leagues. But Tyler Johnson definitely is a guy that you want to look at. Last week was kind of quiet for him at two receptions for 20 yards. But the first week, I'm pretty sure that the first week he was close to like 80 or 90 yards receiving on like 5 or 6 catches. So
yes, yeah, he did pretty good the first week.
Yeah, I think that he's going to be heavily involved. So if he's available, I think you go get him.
Okay, Joe, what about you?
Yeah, I'm a little. Either of these guys would be a really great pickup, especially for a flex spot. Especially with Kupp now, they're talking about maybe going to IR as well. One of these guys is going to be the top dog. Demarcus Robinson had 92% snap share both weeks, even when Kupp and Puka were both there, which is encouraging to see that he was already playing with that first offense. So I think my money's more on Demarcus Robinson over Tyler Johnson, even though Tyler Johnson had a better week 1. But either of these guys, if you need a wide receiver, is someone that I'm putting my waiver bid on. Especially if you need one, I'd say waiver wise, I'd say $15 to $20 maybe for one of these guys. If you're really hurting, maybe a little more because there's no one else there to throw the ball to. I know we're not going to talk about him, but maybe even Colby Parkinson as the tight end is going to see a little more target share now with Kupp and Puka out. So could be another alternative to put some waiver budget towards.
Alrighty, very good. I'm going to group these next guys together. I'm going to call this the Boom Group because that's kind of what they did this week. I got Alec Pierce and Quentin Johnston. Quentin Johnston is rostered in 7% of leagues on Yahoo, and Alec Pierce is rostered in 28% of leagues on Yahoo. Johnston is going up against the Steelers, and Pierce is going up against the Bears. Gents, who are we prioritizing? What do you got percentage fab wise? Joe, we'll start with you.
Oh man, I can't bring myself to play Quinn Johnson. They played against the Panthers. I look at every other game with his drops and his abysmal, like terrible performances. Alec Pierce, on the other hand, I can get behind. I've always been a big Pierce fan. I don't know if he's going to fall back to earth eventually. As I picked up Michael Pittman in our Guillotine League, and he has not met my expectations yet. But I think that could come to an end eventually. It's who knows in Indy who's going to get the ball. It's looking like Alec Pierce mostly. So I think if Alec Pierce is on your waiver wire, I would definitely be picking him up. He might be my top wide receiver target this week, outside of the Rams wide receivers.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Joe here. It seems like, AR. I think AR thinks Pierce is his favorite target so far. I mean, it's just weird to say that, but
what a weird,
who knows what happens because Josh Downs is, he's been out the first 2 weeks. Who knows what happens when he comes back? But through the first 2 weeks, I mean, I'm taking Pierce over Johnson, just like Joe said.
Okay, all right, the consensus is in. There we go. Sorry, Matt. Hi. So we're gonna move on. Our next guy, we have Gabe Davis, 34% rostered. Buffalo Bills. Nothing too much to discuss here. He went seven targets, 3 catches, 33 yards. Sorry about that. What are we thinking? Are we targeting this guy? We can actually group him together with the next guy as well, Brandon Cooks. 42% rostered on Yahoo, going up against the Baltimore Ravens too. He had 2 targets, couple times 19 yards. Are we targeting these guys, or are we kind of feigning them over the other talents that we've kind of listed off already?
You want to go first? I'll go first.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Gabe, don't target Gabe Davis. People were thinking he's going to be the wide receiver 2 behind Christian Kirk. He's not. He's the wide receiver 3 behind Christian Kirk and Brian Thomas Jr. 2 weeks in a row, he hasn't broken 10 points. Not excited for him. Brandon Cooks, on the other hand, I would like to have. He's the wide receiver 2 on a team that likes to throw the ball. I think Dak just had an off week last week. I wouldn't count Cooks out. He had a touchdown week 1. Last week, he still played 81% of the snaps. He's only targeted 2 times, but you got to also look at the Cowboys were not doing well that game. So I wouldn't count Brandon Cooks out of it. Cooks, I would put a little bit of money towards. I don't think anything over $10 maybe, personally. And Gabe Davis, I would just leave on the waiver wire. Let someone else play him and get under 10 points per week. But What do you think, Warren?
Yeah, I agree. Gabe Davis is just a complete fade for me. I mean, he's, like you said, he's behind Christian Kirk, behind Brian Thomas. He's probably going to be behind Evan Ingram even, as far as target share when he comes back. So completely faded him. Brandon Cooks, I'm not as high on him as you are, Joe. I think that Jalen Tolbert is eventually going to start to steal more targets from him, as the season goes on, personally. But again, we'll see how that all plays out. But for me, I'm fading both, personally.
Okay. Alrighty. And that's it for our wide receivers. Time for our last position, the tight end. Surprisingly, we actually have some prime candidates here for perhaps future endeavors. Also considering that some of our top tight ends are just doing horribly right now. So first, I got Hunter Henry, rostered in 24% of leagues on Yahoo, going against New York Jets. Last week, he went 12 for 8 for 109 yards. Warren, what do we think about Hunter Henry? Are we grabbing him? What's the thought process? Are we trusting this tight end? Are we trusting any tight end? What are we doing here?
Man, this is a tough one. I feel like I've seen this Hunter Henry story before, where he pops off a week, and then people go and grab him, and then he just disappears. So for me, I'm giving him one more week.
Okay.
But at the same time, it's like, the tight end really has been weak this year so far. So let's just say I wouldn't be upset if you took a shot on Hunter Henry. Me, I'm waiting one more week.
Okay. Joe?
Of our list of tight ends, Hunter Henry is my favorite tight end. He plays over 80% of snaps both 2 weeks in a row now. Granted, week 1 he was only targeted 3 times, but the Patriots wide receiver room isn't too crazy. So I think I'm very happy with owning Hunter Henry, and I would play him for the shot at it. I think he's my favorite tight end pickup for the week.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, 12 targets is also insane, like just for
Yeah.
general, but also for a
Don't
tight end.
Don't expect that every week, but I would be happy. I think he's going to get like anywhere from 6 to 8 points per week.
So moving on to our next guy, I got Greg. I'm gonna butcher this. Dulcich. Am I right? Did I get that?
Yes.
Awesome. 2% rostered on Yahoo Fantasy, going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, fantasy production last week was obviously an issue. He had 3 catches for 16 yards, but 8 targets, and I think that's kind of the focus point here. Are we trusting Greg, or are we moving away? Yeah, I see some nods, I see some shaking of the heads, I should say. Warren, go ahead. Give your reason as to why you're in now.
No. They just have Baker doesn't throw to the tight ends. Or wait, no, what team is he on?
He's on the Broncos.
The Broncos. I was looking at the next week's matchups. They have the Buccaneers next week.
Yep.
The Broncos.
Even worse, actually.
It's a disaster over there right
even
now.
Worse.
So yeah. I would probably just avoid anyone Broncos right now.
Broncos country, we're not riding. Okay, Joe, how about you?
No, absolutely. This guy, I don't know if anyone watched the Broncos game last week, but this guy dropped so many easy catches. So many easy catches for his rookie quarterback. He's playing around 50 to 60% of the snaps. Absolutely not. I don't want him. After watching him drop so many passes last week, no.
Okay.
I'm out.
We'll move on to our next guy here. A little bit of probably a brighter note. We got Mike Gesicki, one of those 2 pronunciations. I got 4% on Yahoo Fantasy ownership right now, up against the Washington Commanders next week. Pretty not great defense. He went 9 for 7 for 91 yards. Joe, what are we thinking?
Trap. He had one good week.
Hey.
He hasn't played over 50% of the snaps in either games, so that's not an encouraging sign. And Jamar Chase is there. I hear T. Higgins is getting closer to a return. Soon, Mike is going to fade into non-fantasy relevance again, just like week 1 where he only put up 3 points. So I think he's more consistently going to be in that range.
I concur.
Okay.
Joe Burrow has a history of not really targeting the tight ends a ton, so I would fade him.
Alrighty, there you go. Quick and simple. Fade Mike Gesicki. Our last tight end for the night here is another fun guy. We got Zach Ertz going up against the Bengals. 8% rostered on Yahoo. He went 4 for 4 for 62 yards. What do we think, Warren? What are we thinking about Zach Ertz? Is this the guy that Daniels is throwing to?
So I think that for me, he's going to start seeing more targets. I think that he's kind of like a security blanket right now for Jaden Daniels. And I think as the season goes on, he's going to start, like I said, start to see more and more targets. And for me, he's out of these 4 guys, he's the one I'm targeting personally.
Okay, Joe?
He's on our list. He's the second guy I'm targeting. The only thing that scares me with Zach Ertz is that who knows where Jaden Daniels is throwing the ball. I don't know. I don't think many NFL analysts know.
Does he know?
Look at Terry McLaurin was targeted 4 times week 1, 8 times week 2. Your so-called wide receiver 1. Noah Brown was targeted 3 times last week, but 0 times week 1. So Luke McCaffrey targeted 0 times week 2, but 3 times week 1. It's like, I never know. It's scary to me as a fantasy owner. I don't know what that offense is doing. So I'm kind of staying clear. I believe they didn't even score a touchdown last week. I think it was all field goals, right?
I am under the impression that Jaden Daniels has not scored a single touchdown yet. There is a meme going around right now that J.J. McCarthy is still tied for the most touchdowns scored between the rookie quarterbacks right now, which I still think holds up.
Well, he ran in. He ran in for touchdowns, but he hasn't thrown a touchdown yet.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, but no, you are right. He has not thrown a single touchdown. So I don't want any part of this wide receiver tight end core of Washington until they figure out what's happening, because he's rushing, he's taking some big hits, and I mean, yeah, I'm steering clear.
Alrighty. Sounds good. And with that, that is our waiver portion. We do have a fun little sort of end segment here. We got a buy, sell, hold. So we got a couple players listed here, and we're going to jump right into it. So, gentlemen, our first player. So here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to give you the player name. I want each of you to tell me if you're buy, selling, or holding him. And a brief description as to why. Nothing too crazy. So first up, I got Tyreek Hill. Warren, go.
I'm holding him. Tua is going to be back eventually. It sounds like he says he has no plans to retire. And I think Skylar Thompson can get the job done while he's out.
Okay, Joe?
I'm also holding. You're not going to get what you want for him at this moment with the Tua panic. So,
alrighty, perfect. Moving on. DJ Moore. Joe, go ahead. You can go first.
I'm buying him. I think right now is the lowest you'll be able to get DJ Moore at, because they're struggling, and I don't think that will be the case forever.
Warren, are you the same?
I am also buying him. I think as Caleb Williams plays more, he's going to start to target DJ Moore some more, and he's going to get more production.
We all hope so. We all hope so for the prodigy, huh? Moving on. Jonathan Taylor. I'm going to start with Joe, because I know you are a dynasty owner of Jonathan Taylor.
Oh yeah, I'm holding him. I mean, they lost last week, and he still put up very good fantasy numbers. Neither right now his cost is still pretty high because he's an elite running back, but I also wouldn't sell him. I'm just holding him.
Are you the same way?
I concur. I am also holding Jonathan Taylor.
Okay, wow, we are 100% so far. I got Chris Olave as the next up here. Before you guys answer, I'm going to answer for Matt High, and he's going to say hold. I just know that's what he's going to say, or buy. It's going to be one of the two. Don't know which, but it's going to be one of the two. Definitely not sell. Warren, what do you got?
Oh, this is a tough one.
I know, right?
I'm going to hold him for now.
Okay.
I know the production hasn't been there, but I think he's too good of a receiver to have that stay like that. I think eventually he will get some receptions, hopefully. Let's see.
Okay. Joe?
I'm buying. This is the lowest point that you'll probably get Chris Olave at. He's doing okay, but he's not like going crazy, but he still is a top target there. He's very talented, and I would love to have him.
Alrighty. Next up, we have the professional gaslighter of the universe, J.K. Dobbins. And by professional gaslighter, I mean me and Matt, I guess. Joe, what do we got here? Are you buy, selling, holding?
This is tough. I kind of want to sell. Him. He's balling out right now, and he's only on like a 50% snap share, and he is lighting it up. You can probably this is probably one of the peak value for him right now. Granted, I think if he gets more chances, he's going to stay balling out, but I love him, but I think sell right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think you sell Dobbins. Their schedule's going to get tougher. Some tougher defenses coming up. So,
what would you sell him for? Let's go from a dynasty perspective, because it's a lot easier to trade in dynasty. What are you asking for J.K. Dobbins?
I'd probably target maybe a second-round pick for him right now. That might be a little too high considering his injury history, but
well, it's all about sell high, right?
Yeah,
you know?
About sell high, exactly. So I'm trying to get a second round for him.
Joe?
Out of curiosity, I just want to see.
He's looking it
up.
On the
Keep Trade Cut has them valued equal to a trade to like Keon Coleman, Tua, Brian Robinson. I think I'd be happy with like. I think if I needed a wide receiver, I'd be happy with like a Keon Coleman or maybe even Brian Robinson. I'd be happy with as well. For Dobbins.
Alrighty. Okay. Moving on to our last contender here. I got Derek Carr. Once again, I'm going to answer for Matt High. Drop him, burn him. Doesn't even want to associate with him. He hates Derek Carr. But going back to us here. Warren, what are you doing with Derek Carr? Assume that you can be in a situation of like a redraft league and also a dynasty league for this, because I know those answers will differ.
Right. Well, as far as like a dynasty league, I'm not buying him. He's too old. And we don't even know if he's legit right now.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like just a redraft league, I may be buying him if I can get him for cheap. I don't know exactly what that means for a redraft league for Derek Carr, but Joe, what do you think?
Dynasty, I'm selling. He's like Warren said, he's old and he's doing really well right now. So this is probably peak price point for him in Dynasty. And in redraft, I'm holding him. He's going to cost too much to buy. But if I have him on my roster, he's doing really well this season, and I'd be happy with him as my redraft quarterback.
All righty. And with that, that's our episode for today. Thank you all for coming around and watching us. Please like, share, subscribe, follow, whatever platform you're on. We'll be here all year, all season long, and even after that. So that's it from us. Thank you, and see you around.
See ya.